for me, older protagonists for me are now more interesting because I'm 30, in my 30s now, and I kind of want to see from the perspective of someone who is also like maybe in that age group or older, how they deal with their situations in the world, because it kind of, I find some semblance of like, connection there to their plight.
I'm big on older protagonists more than I am younger protagonists now. I still watch them both, but if you were to give me a show with an adult protagonist, I won't lie to you, I will probably find myself watching that a lot quicker than I would one with a younger protagonist.
Sometimes I want to see like the young protagonist and see him like try to learn how to grow. And then sometimes I just want to see a dude that's been there before. Like, the phrase act like you've been here before. It's like, yeah, I've been here before. Yo, what's poppin', everybody? It's the No Level Cap Podcast. We back once again with the crew talking about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, none of the bullshit. Let me introduce y'all to my incredible co-hosts. We've got the Black Daredevil and the secret weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. What's poppin', Terrence?
Yo, I saw the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie yesterday. It's quite good. It's a really good movie. The art style, it reminds me a lot of, funny enough, now that Nickelodeon has purchased Ninja Turtles, it reminds me a lot of those 90s Nick cartoons where they weren't like, were back when you could kind of be a bit more funky with the art styles in terms of not looking like aesthetically pleasing. Like some things would be kind of like misshapen, kind of like Our Real Monsters where things look slightly off. Something that's just an example, but the art style reminds me a lot of that. It's a really good movie, and it's probably the most New York that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have ever been. Like, the only thing they're missing in that movie is them saying dead ass, and that's about it. Like, other than that, they're just straight up New York.
What happened? Did Jay-Z just walk out and just New York State of Mind came on?
Wow. Might as well. When you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, it's a good movie and definitely worth watching. This year has been a very interesting one for animation. So yeah, if you all have the time, go check it out.
Let's get back to some dope ass looking animation movies and styles and shit. I'm with it. Next up, we got the collectors and the master of Twitch, Will Coleman. What's going on, Will?
Not much. I ain't gonna lie to you right now. I'm full. I ate good, so the itis kind of snuck a little jab at me right then and there. But I'm like, nah, I gotta sit up with my guys for a little bit. I can't be sliding asleep in the chair. So, but I'm here. I'm living. I'm sliding back into Apex for a little bit. They reworked the character, so I'm trying to see how that all plays out when I get a chance to try them out. And just gonna have my fun in that again for a little bit before I hop to something new.
All right, I feel you.
Okay. How is the Revenant rework, by the way?
It's interesting. It's interesting because he doesn't have his old ability, so now you just randomly kind of see him flying around because he has like this pounce now that he can use, and you just hear it and you just see like this metal mangle of parts just come flying at you with a gun. So yeah, it's kind of scary when you just see it happening. That ain't fun at all.
Well, I'm glad you at least enjoyed it, even if seeing this terrifying character come at you ain't fun.
Yeah.
Next up, we got the One Punch Man and the Master of Combos, Devin Butts. What's going on, Devin?
Not too bad, man. Actually, Will, I've been meaning to check it out. I've seen the trailers for the Apex, the changes, but I actually deleted it off my computer a while back because it was taking up a lot of space. Like every time it's like 50 gig update. I'm like, bruh, and when Street Fighter came out, I was like, I got to make a decision. Street Fighter, Apex, and it's like, hey man, Apex, you got to get out of here, man. But I think as I mentioned the last time we had on the last podcast, Chain Echoes, man, I've been JRPGing it up, man. This game has had me enthralled, and I think I'm at the end of it, so about to beat it. If you like JRPGs, man, and you want to try out something new, some indie stuff, man, please try out Chain Echoes. This game has blown me away. My good friend Rakeem recommended it, and man, it was a heck of a recommendation. So if you get a chance, please play that game.
Okay. Next up, we got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's going on, Rakeem?
Hey, what's going on, everybody out there? Today, actually piggybacking off of Terrence's TMNT journey with the movies, I got to finish a TMNT game. I played Shredder's Revenge the other day with some friends of mine online, and we went through the entire campaign, and it was quite fun. Playing that, man, it's like it just like it picked a core memory in my brain of playing beat 'em ups growing up, like in arcades or like at home, like the old TMNTs in arcades or like beat 'em ups I played as a kid. And I'm just in the mood for beat 'em ups. So today, actually, was just perusing beat 'em ups, and I remember a very long time ago, Terrence talked to us about River City Girls. And I looked it up. I was like, this seemed like something I could like play next. So I actually bought River City Girls 1 just to try it out. I'm gonna try it out probably tomorrow. It's getting late tonight, but I'm just in that mood to play some beat 'em ups. I'm still playing some RPGs. As many of the guys who are here know, I finished a big boss fight in Final Fantasy 16, the Bahamut fight, and that fight was basically an episode of an entire anime.
Man,
like that fight took up half an hour minimum. It was epic. It was cool. It went from a siege on a castle to a bombastic boss fight to a fusion to outer space. A lot of things happen. I ain't spoiling no plot. Just know if you want to think about playing FF16 and you just want some spectacle, it got you. They got all of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what's next because this is nowhere near the end. I'm like, bro, there's more. So I don't know what they're gonna do next. I don't know what they're gonna do next to top this, but I'm looking forward to it.
It's gonna do next. That's what it's gonna do. It's gonna do next.
Gonna do next.
Oh shit! Next. Sound live. Hey man, Devin, I ain't gonna lie to you. I thought about it when you said like I had to make some decisions. I'm realizing now I'm gonna have to buy a new hard drive. Like it's time for the upgrade because it's everything. You know, nothing is. It wants to just be like small now. Everything's 100 gigs plus. Yeah. And so now you got to the point where it's like, all right, man, I need 2 terabytes, 3 terabytes minimum, just to hold all these freaking games, man. It's getting out of hand.
Yeah, one ain't gonna cut it no more, man. One used to be like, man, I got 1 terabyte. He got all the space. Now you got some of the
no space. It's bad, bro. Like I was like, go get Baldur's Gate, and then I looked at my hard drives and I was like, I ain't got space for that. And I'm gonna have the same problem with Starfield if I don't get it together because Starfield ain't gonna be no small game either. So it's like, all right, man, for that alone, I'm gonna just have to go ahead and upgrade. So I get into that probably next month so I can get on that Starfield and maybe get on that Baldur's Gate because I've been gone away from like Western RPGs for so long. It's time to go ahead and get back into them.
You know, it's gonna take a lot of space when you go out there and get lost in that wormhole, man. They gotta have a lot of gigs for you to be able to get back to the home planet.
Hey man, we still gonna see how that game turns out. I'm very curious to see. I don't know if that game's out. Well, not out, but like I don't know if that game is gotten into the hands of reviewers yet. I feel like people have been kind of cagey about it. I did hear something that made me think maybe they're out. I hope that it's that what I heard was wrong because if I heard it right, the game may be a little sus. We'll see. Of course, I am Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. If you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We're on YouTube for video fans, but if you prefer the audio version, we're live on Spotify as well. Let's get into this week's topic. Well, before that, let's get into a question about this week's topic. One thing I wanted to get into this week is an idea that's been bugging me for a while now. Like, it's the common complaint among older anime fans. Like, a lot of older anime fans like to complain about how young anime protagonists are and how tired they are of young protagonists in anime. This complaint usually kind of comes from like shonen fans. I've seen a few shoujo fans say it, but it's usually like shonen fans. And the trouble is like those anime are designed for that demographic. Like it's designed to reach a young audience. Like it's not like you can enjoy it, but it's not really for you. So like you getting thrown off is like
expecting Barney to be for adults.
I mean, not quite Barney, right? But like real talk, we do that in America. Like what was the dude that did Castlevania? This is Adi Shankar.
Are you talking about the anime?
Yeah.
I don't know the specific person's name. I not off the top of my head.
Director or whatever. Like Adi Shankar did like Castlevania, and like he did before that and after that. But like before that, he did like a super serious.
You're right.
Okay, so I was right. He did this super serious Power Rangers, and it's like, man, Power Rangers is, it was like, blood and people getting murdered and all this. I'm like, this is for children. Like I understand, but like this ain't for adults, man. Like and like I feel like a lot of fans, like older fans, like they want the media to grow up with them, and to a point that's okay. I do think it's a good idea to give good media or like better written media to children. They deserve good media too. But it's also hey man, everything needs to be like,
Facts.
oh, we've got all the blood and the guts and gore and grit. Like, hey, bro, like this is Transformers. You need to relax, like right now. Like, give it a rest. Like Jim and the holograms does not need somebody to be. It does not need a murder mystery. Chill out.
Fatality.
But yeah, like that doesn't mean there aren't plenty of anime that are designed for older people. So I just wanted to talk about that and see if we could, talk about some of our favorite anime that are focused around like older protagonists. Like people that are adults. But first, I wanted to ask y'all: do you prefer younger or older protagonists? Because there is an upside to both. It's easier to identify with one, like with older protagonists, but then of course younger protagonists have that growth, that you get from teen heroes. Because like when you're young, that's when you experience the most growth. And so I just wanted to see like which one do y'all prefer? Rakeem, which one do you prefer, older or younger protagonists?
So this was actually something I had to think about. I thought it was a no-brainer at first because, as I've gotten older, I have tend to kind of lean towards more older protagonists because I like my characters to be more mature. But at the same time, I do like younger protagonists who are like kind of like they don't know what's happening in the world yet. They're still kind of unjaded, because a lot of older protagonists, they'll have a lot of issues or they'll be jaded about the society they're in. And like they won't be as open-minded to things. And depending on the type of story you're telling and on the world you're in, that could be positive or negative. But I think overall, I do like the older protagonists more. I like protagonists who think smarter, who have a sense of maturity and know how to handle themselves in situations. I'm kind of over and we've talked about this before on the podcast many times. I'm kind of over the like young, dumb, hungry, stupid. Like, look, man, like one of the niggas' effects of like watching shonen anime as a kid is like, are all like strong protagonists just idiots? Like, bro, like there's a few intellectuals among y'all, but everybody's just like an idiot and they always just all they want to do is eat. Like, no, there's gotta be more depth to that. And I feel like I get that more from like older protagonists now when I watch anime. And of course, there's always immaturity in some elements of older protagonists too, because that's kind of the fun part of watching anime is seeing characters kind of like who you think are like got it all together, not have everything together, and they have their flaws and things like that. There's fun in that. You can it could be funny or it could be sad in some cases, depending on how you do that. But I think for me, older protagonists for me are now more interesting because I'm 30, in my 30s now, and I kind of want to see what like from the perspective of someone who is also like maybe in that age group or older, how they deal with their situations in the world, because it kind of I find some semblance of like, connection there to their plight. Something as small as like Saitama in One Punch Man, his little ratty apartment trying to figure out purpose of his life. I mean, he's a superhero, right, but like everyone does that at some point. Like, man, what am I doing with my life? Is this all there is? Like, for such a simple anime as One Punch Man, like that's a big question. Like the guy who has everything still doesn't have, his purpose because he's so overpowered he can't relate to anybody else. It's almost like inhumanity in his humanity. I think that's a kind of an interesting dynamic, and you can't get that from like a younger protagonist the same way, because he'll be he'll have some kind of demon inside of him, and his parents won't be around, and he's got to deal with like people bullying him in school. No, man, it's like I'm a grown man. I got a job. I need money. Things like that. Those are elements I relate to. So I'm going with older characters and how I relate to them now compared to back in.
A really well thought out answer. Terrence, what do you think, man? Like, is it older or younger for you?
For me, it depends on the content of the series, because I mean, obviously, if an anime takes place in high school, I mean, there's going to be teenagers around, and if it takes place in something that maybe is a bit more corporate or it's like after high school, like college, etc., then I expect older characters. But there's definitely a different experience with both. Whereas with young characters, yeah, you do get to see that growth. Let's be honest, most anime, like in the shonen demographic, I'll specifically talk from the shonen demographic just because that's the most popular demographic and like genre, if we're being honest. So in that demo, yeah, you have just a bunch of young male or sometimes young female protagonists, and just seeing them grow and come into their own, it can be very interesting to watch. And I still like to see that development. Just because I'm older now doesn't mean that I don't like watching that sort of thing. But at the same time, I definitely understand where you're coming from, Rakeem, in terms of now that you're older, you do want to see characters more around your age. Because I agree that there are some. I don't like it when anime have content that feels like it should involve older characters, but they chose not to anyway. Like if the characters aren't in school, they're like hunting demons, they're like doing adult activity, and I don't mean adult in like a pornographic way or anything like that, but like they're doing adult things, but they're not adults. That's when it feels weird to me. Like if they're I don't know, like I said, if they're part of like some organization that usually like you have like these weird anime where they're like in the military or they're like part of some secret organization that's like hunting demons or vampires or whatever, and they have kids doing this job, and it just feels weird sometimes. Like I get why they do it, I understand, but it just feels like in a scenario like that, it would make more sense to have adults. And it's not like they're adults that like they're not adult characters around. Because when I thought about this question, I was like, you know, if you look at series like Naruto, Black Clover, or a lot of shonen anime like My Hero, it's not like there aren't adults in the show. A lot of the supporting characters are adults to the younger characters. They act as like those mentors in a sense. So it's not like there's a complete absence of them, but in terms of them being at the forefront, yeah, you have to look outside of shonen and you're more like mainstream anime for that sort of thing. So for me, in terms of which one I like more, it kind of depends. Like I go through waves of it where it's like I don't mind watching younger protagonists, but there's also times where it's like, yeah, I want to watch someone that's older. When Spy Family came out, it definitely appealed to me in that regard just because it had older protagonists, especially like with Yor being someone who's like in her late 20s as opposed to like just someone in like high school or like young 20s or whatever. So that's especially rare for a female character. So yeah, for me, it depends. But yeah, I like both. It just depends on like the content of the show and where they're going with it.
Terrence basically said he watched a lot of anime and be like, where are your parents?
I mean, it's not so much where your parents. It's just more so like, I don't. Why are you in this situation? This just seems kind of weird. Yeah. It's like I'll put it this way. It's like Euphoria, where people criticize Euphoria. The main criticism of that is like these kids don't seem like they were realistically be in these kind of situations. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel you on that. Like a lot of people definitely like in the case of Euphoria, people look at that and they're like, man, that ain't the high school I grew up in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've seen people. Now, conversely, I've seen people say that is definitely the high school I grew up in. So I guess it depends on like your environment. You know, what side of the tracks you grew up on, that type of thing. So, I mean, like, it depends. I think with Japan, a lot of times they'll have, like, it's like a whole, like, hey, man, we throwing you into the deep end of the pool. It's more of like a flashback to when they used to give kids a shit ton of responsibility that they shouldn't necessarily have had. And so, like, that's why you get to see, like, the mistakes that they make. But, yeah, I do agree that it's kind of, like, strange to look at and you like, hey, man, where are the adults? Where are the fucking grown-ups? Devin, what do you think, man? Is there like do you have a preference, young, old?
This one, I'm kind of in the same realm as Terrence, but I think I do have a definitive answer. For the younger side, I like seeing the character that has like a lot of resolve, because sometimes there are younger characters, like even though they're teenagers, some characters really have a lot of strong resolve. Probably the one I can think of off the top of my head is like Gon. Like he was kind of a happy-go-lucky character, but like when it was something had to get done, he's like, I'm gonna figure out a way. I'm gonna figure out some way. And he was just like, he could also be really serious. Like when Kite died, he was like, hey man, like it was no more games. Like he's like, there is no more games. Somebody finna catch some hands. But what I like about the older characters, I think that's the reason why I actually like those better. The wisdom that they have. A lot of times you see older characters in anime, they usually kind of OP. They've learned some power. They've like Genkai. She's been around forever. She's known Tagoro when he was, didn't have the triangle shoulders. She has all this wisdom to impart on somebody. And they're OP. Like she was an older lady, but she was still giving out hands. I always like seeing like the older characters still like around and kicking. I want to use JoJo as an example too. I know like it's not really the older characters that are like the protagonists. It's usually like the kids are usually like 16 and 17. But like Joseph, when they showed his grandson, he was still there in the picture, giving Jotaro guidance, like, hey man, this, that, and the third. And
Them bros all look 40 anyway.
That I mean, true. I ain't gonna lie. Before I learned, I'm like, how old is your child? Is 16? Man, like he's like 35. It is crazy as the anime went on, they trying to change the art style, so they made him look less like a big beefy Kenshiro character and just like a regular person. But yeah, I think I prefer seeing like the older characters like impart wisdom, even something like in Naruto with the Seinen. You had Jiraiya. You know, he was kind of childish in ways, but he had a lot of he knew how to fight well. He gave a lot to Naruto. So just seeing those characters kind of like also have like a protege. I always love seeing somebody like, hey, this is my technique. Now it's yours. You go do with it what you will, make it better, make it your own, and maybe someday you'll teach it somebody else. So I like seeing those type of things. Young characters I do like I think Deku is kind of one that I like. I know I always hear people say when they don't like my heroes, like it's too much crying. Like I hear that complaint a lot. I mean, it was Deku was
my
like
arm was breaking every time I used my powers. I'd cry too.
I would cry too.
I would cry, and also y'all motherfuckers just wouldn't get saved because like once I
that is true. But I can even remember him crying like when he I think when his mother told him that he didn't have a quirk. What was that scene? He was just sitting there looking like
he was sitting there.
That boy was
just crying.
eyes wide
boy
open, just tears just flowing. Like
my boy was smart.
H-U-T Hut.
Yeah, he was hurt.
definitely Hut.
But I think that's probably one of the young characters I like because he was very like attentive. He was always like trying to pay attention to detail. He's like he was just another one of the kind of characters like which kind of the prototype. He wouldn't give up. I mean, even though his power was just like Sage. It's like every time he used it, like something break. He's like, all right, bro, I'm gonna use that one time and I'm done. He's like, nah, I gotta get it, man. I gotta do it, man.
Figure this out.
Yeah, but yeah, I think overall though I prefer seeing the older characters, and also just because, like Keem said, I'm also in my 30s now too, so it kind of changes as you get older with anime. You kind of see stuff from different perspectives. So,
Okay, I think for me, I'm definitely kind of in line with Terrence in that I couldn't really pick. It just depends on the show that I'm watching. I do heavily agree with Keem where I'm just like tired, like. But that comes with shonen in general, like just like these dumbass protagonists that just like don't think and they just leap right into things, and it's just like, oh man, what are you like? Why are you acting like this? Like, why can't you think beyond just like the next meal, and like why can't you think about situations that don't have to do with punching somebody in the mouth? Like, I like to see the fights, but like you ought to be able to like navigate the world outside of like punching somebody in the face. Like as soon as that situation is over with, they go from being like a genius to being like an idiot. And that shit, like it's appealing at first, but the older you get, the more it's like, all right, I've seen this before. And also there's not a lot to that to begin with. So I do that is why I kind of always liked, and we talked about this in the shonen protagonist type episode, where I was like, I kind of always did like the Deku type, the character that overthought everything, because at least he is thinking, right? Like, yeah, he's second guessing himself, but at least he's putting thought into him. But I like the growth, even in that. Like when you get to see the growth of like a character that maybe kind of hates themselves for being weak, and like Deku, he's always like, if you see Deku crying, it's usually not because he broke all his limbs, which you think that would make you cry, but he's usually not crying over that. He's usually crying because he's like, I'm not strong enough to do the thing that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And like I can respect that because he's like, and over time you see him like cry less because he's gotten stronger, he's gotten better, and he's learned how to protect the things that he feels needs protecting. And I like that. I vibe with that. And like, so I do love seeing characters like that, like younger protagonists like that, but also there's just something cool about older protagonists in anime, like especially if it's an action anime. But even sometimes when it's not, there's just something cool about them because they have that experience factor to them, and so they're like, yeah, I'd have seen this before, and even if they hadn't seen it before, they've dealt with enough nonsense over the course of their lives that like when something new and crazy pop up, they'd be like, all right, let's figure it out. And like, you know, like you go back to like those old, you know, early 2000s and late 90s anime, you know, the old protagonist smoking a cigarette, and he'd be like, yep, I guess it's about to get real. And they flick the cigarette away and get to work. You like, all right, I can rock with that. Like that's a protagonist that I can get with. And that is, to me, more fun to see. But like, you know, obviously, I don't to me, I guess it's a variety thing. Like you want as much variety as possible. So I'm like, sometimes I want to see like the young protagonist and see him like try to learn how to grow. And then sometimes I just want to see a dude that's been there before. Like, you know, the phrase "act like you've been here before" is like, yeah, I've been here before, and I like seeing that sometimes. So for me, it's definitely both. Will, what about you, man? Do you prefer older or younger protagonists in your anime?
Sitting down thinking about it after like kind of hearing y'all out, I've always been 50-50 on it because sometimes I do enjoy the younger protagonists because they're just like, sometimes they just come off as like really goofy a lot of times for the stuff that they do within a show. But I do wholeheartedly agree with Terrence when it comes to younger protagonists. It does have to do with the context and the setting and everything around that character and what it is that they are trying to accomplish or whatever trouble they may be in within the 12 to 26 episodes that they're on screen. It really depends with the younger one, but over time as I've gotten older, just like y'all, I'm 31, so I've been really kind of leaning more towards older protagonists. Those are the protagonists that I sit there and I'm like, y'all know what y'all doing, y'all kind of get it, but y'all also have kind of sat through the struggles of going through your 20s, coming into your 30s and your 40s, and you just like, I've seen it before, I can figure this out, or okay, this is a new situation, just breathe and we'll get it, because no one's gonna like tell me that I can't do it unless I tell myself that I can't do it. So I'm big on older protagonists more than I am younger protagonists. Now, I still watch them both, but if you were to give me a show with an adult protagonist, I won't lie to you, I will probably find myself watching that a lot quicker than I would one with a younger protagonist.
Okay. What's up, Terrence?
Just one thing I was going to add to that is, like, I agree that usually when I see a synopsis for an anime and it mentions the characters being older, I will be drawn to that just because, it's not something you see every day. So I will just say that if an anime does feature older characters as protagonists, I will at least check it out to see what direction it goes in.
The novelty of that, I agree, like, because you don't get older protagonists in anime as often as you would think, and there's reasons for that we might get into on another show. But like a lot of times, the protagonists are kind of younger, and so I'll be like, oh well. As soon as I see something about a grown man started to deal, like even in the unoriginal shows or like the shows, it's just kind of like. I know Terrence remembers this. Remember the show about the world's finest assassin?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That shit got hella popular for a while, and it was largely because of the protagonist was older. Like, yeah, he was reincarnated into a younger body, but he still had it ain't like by the grace of the gods. He still had his memories, and he still had that experience of being an older person, and so he operated like an older person, and he just wasn't always shocked by everything and terrified. Like, he just knew what he was doing, and he had the experience, and that kind of caught on with people. So I think people do kind of have that hunger for like older protagonists.
It's like that saying of youth is wasted on the young.
Man, I think that was. In fact, they have a new anime coming out soon. It's like a slice of life. It's supposed to be about like this older couple that have been together for like decades or whatever, and then they just get all of a sudden turned into like 20-somethings again.
Yo, when that comes out, let me know.
I swear, hit me up.
I'll show y'all what the anime is after the show. But I thought that was a really cool idea because I was like, oh, what? I've never seen that before. But like since we talking about this, let's talk about some of our favorite anime that have like older lead, like like an older lead protagonist, that type of stuff. I had a couple. I actually tossed a few, just because I was like, I've talked about these shows so much before, and so I picked two that I haven't talked about much. Well, one, like I've talked about these before too, but not as much as I've talked about some of the other ones. So, I do want to see what y'all came up with and let's see how much diversity we can get. Terrence, what you got? What's the first one?
So I'll admit, when I was thinking about this, I was like, I really had to think like, man, what older protagonist can I toss out here that would be worth really discussing? And one of the shows that came out, I think it's 2017 when it came out. It came out on Amazon. I feel like a lot of people know it for the memes, but not many people have like really watched it. And that's Inuyashiki. That came out when it came out. It didn't help that it was on Amazon when it first came out, when Amazon was licensing anime, and so that kind of stopped a lot of people from watching it at that time. Back when Amazon, they licensed like Recreators, Vinland Saga before it. Like somehow Vinland Saga kind of escaped out of that, and it blew up despite being on Amazon. But yeah, there was a period where Amazon was licensing anime and they were licensing some good stuff. And as a result, a lot of people weren't watching it because it wasn't on like Crunchyroll or something a little more accessible. But anyway, Inuyashiki, for those that don't know, it features an older protagonist. Like he's old. He's like in his 50s. And in the first episode, he's just a regular salaryman guy. His family doesn't really respect him. Like his kids don't like him that much. He's in his 50s, but he looks like someone who's older, like he's in his 60s or so. Like just being in the corporate world has just aged him drastically. And his family, they just don't really respect him like that. He's a kind guy and he's a bit of a pushover. He doesn't really know how to like speak up in the way that he should. And in the first episode, he finds out that he has cancer. He goes to like the park and kind of just breaks down just because life has just been just not that great for him. And he ends up encountering like this asteroid, like this alien asteroid that ends up giving him superpowers. And that same asteroid also encounters like a younger character. Like it's interesting with this anime because it's like reversed. Normally you would have like the younger character being like considered the hero, and you'd have like the older character as the villain, and them like clashing. It's a clash of old versus young, and like young ideals versus like old ideals. In this, it's totally reversed, where Inuyashiki, he is the main character and he's the one that wants to use his powers for good. And you have the younger character who gets the powers and he uses it for evil. And so you have like that reverse clash going on there. And it's just a very interesting show. It's from the creator of Gantz, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's a really fascinating show. It has a banger of an OP by Man on a Mission. Yeah, Man on a Mission. Yeah, that OP is definitely something.
They're just a dope band in general.
Yeah. And I just really like this character just because you don't see characters of that age as the MCs in anime, and seeing him get like this second chance at life and use these powers to help people. Like in the first couple episodes, he does some acts that are really incredible, and the people that he helps, it's genuinely great to watch. And later on, you get to see this clash between he and the younger character, and that's great as well. It's definitely an anime that I would recommend, but yeah, I think that he's a really cool older character that I enjoyed watching. So I definitely recommend Inuyashiki to anyone that hasn't watched it already.
Okay. I remember when you first started watching that anime and you recommended it, and I always meant to go back to it, but it was like what scared me off. Well, not scared me off, but like what always made me go, oh, okay. It's like an hour. Every episode's like an hour long, right?
It's just 30 minutes, or just regular anime length.
Is it?
As far as I know, I mean, when I watched it was just regular anime length. It's 12 or 13 episodes.
It's definitely that, but I could have sworn that it was like every episode was like an hour or whatever. Oh, I guess not. I guess I was wrong. I guess I'll just go back and check it out. Then now I got no excuse. It sounded silly.
Maybe you're not thinking of like the director's cut of ReZero, are you? Because that's an hour long.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm not sure then.
Because I mean, I know I bounced off that one. I knew I wasn't coming back for that one. Once I seen the shit with the rabbits, I was like, all right, yeah, that's enough for me. Will, what about you, man? What's your first choice?
I actually wrote down quite a few, and I was like, let me see if I can narrow it down. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? I just finished this show like not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. I finished it. I want to talk about My Home Hero.
Right.
Yeah, I really ended up enjoying that show a lot. And for those of y'all that hadn't sat down with it or probably wrote it off, I will tell y'all now, it's short, no more than 12 episodes. But this is the story of a man who basically ends up in the middle of some mess between some organizations because he found out that his daughter was dating a very abusive young man. And he kills this young man after they have a scrap because he's trying to help him. Because he's just like Terrence's character. Very meek, very kind of backgroundish in a way. Like he's kind of a bit of a pushover. He's not the most physically imposing guy, but he's a family man and he loves his family. And when it came to that, when push came to shove, he killed someone and he had to find a way to get away with it. And now he's dealing with the people that were tied to his daughter's abusive boyfriend. Well, now dead boyfriend. So, and it just follows this whole saga of how he kind of lives his life day to day and dealing with these people, crossing their paths, being in the middle of their dealings. and trying to also protect his daughter and even have his wife involved in this here and there. Like, it's a really good, like, in a way, almost like a murder mystery to an extent. It's almost like that. It's like you're at the front of the mystery. Like, you've seen what happened, you know what happened, but will they find out how this happened, how it went? Yeah, it's a really good show. And I think Tosu Tetsuo is actually a pretty solid protagonist. And the way it ended, I gotta say, there is a second season falling behind this. I would hope so, because if not, I will go read the manga, because my home hero deserves another run. I think it does. So my home hero is looking really good right now.
Okay. That was one that we all looked at and thought was pretty interesting, but I think you were the one that really delved into it.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I
you
went
digging it though.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the first I thought about, I had a couple that I wanted to try too, but what I wanted to do was like not go for the easy picks. One, because like they're the easy picks, but two, just in case some of y'all pick some of them and then there's no overlap. I wanted to cut that out if I could. So my first choice, and I'm glad that Terrence didn't take this, although he may not even thought about it, is this show called Otakoi. And that was one of my favorite ones from back in the day.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like Love is Hard for Nerds.
Yeah.
I figured that's one that you would pick, so I left that one alone. So yeah.
Oh snap! Thanks.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah, this is like one of my favorite. Definitely one of my favorite slice of life of the few that I've watched. It's easily at the top. It's in my like top 30 or whatever. I don't know. I don't really have like an order to my list. I just have like a top list of shows that I fuck with heavy. And this is definitely one of them. If you haven't seen it, it's a short show. It's a romance. It's about this office girl named Narumi, and she kind of has her life together, so it seems. But like when you dig into it, you find out that she's like got this big secret that she's trying to hide, and then the secret turns out that she's like a fucking nerd. She's like a giant fucking nerd, and she doesn't want anybody to know that she's a nerd. She's dated boyfriends and tried to keep them from finding out and shit like that. And every time it just doesn't, like, all these relationships she get into, they just don't work out. And then she goes and starts this new job, and she meets someone. She meets an old friend of hers that she grew up with, Hirotaka or Nifuji. Hirotaka, I think is his name.
Hirotaka.
And so he's like listening to her talk about her complaints, and he knows that she's a nerd because he grew up with her. And then she starts talking about like her, nerdy, like how hard it is for her to find a boyfriend or whatever. And then I ain't gonna lie, it's got one of the coldest endings as far as like a romance, and that's part of why I like the fact that it's for like adults, because it was like, instead of it being like dancing around like whether or not they're gonna date, at the end of the episode, he was like, all right, look, what if you just dated me? Like, I'm a nerd too, you a nerd, I'm gonna have your back, we can like hang out, we can go on dates, all that shit. And then she was like, you know what? Why not? That's a good idea. And I was like, okay, we on to something here. Like, it ain't a lot of dancing around. It ain't a lot of like drawn out shit. It's just we just dating.
Yeah, like will they, won't they? Just go straight into it. Yeah,
ain't no will they, won't they?
Yeah, they threw will they, won't they directly in the trash. It was like, no, we dating. And then the rest of the series is just about the two of them dating, and it's just so cute to see them together. And then like they have their friends, and their friends also kind of nerdy too, and they have like their own little kind of interaction that they have going, where it's like they seem like they don't like each other, but they're actually really in love and supportive of one another. And man, it's just it's a joy, first of all, to see these characters that are total adults. Like, they go to work, they have problems getting jobs, like not problems getting jobs, but like they have problems at their jobs, they have problems, worried about whether or not they're doing their work correctly. And then just the problems of like keeping a relationship not just going, but keeping it fresh, keeping like the like, because like at one point they realized like, man, we really hadn't gone on no dates, we just hang out and play video games together, we should probably do something about it, like an actual date. So like they have all of that, so they're constantly throwing these little angles at you. It's not very long, it's maybe 12 episodes, I think 12 or 11 episodes, and it's easily my favorite romance, just because there's so many things that I already identify with, and the fact that it had older protagonists, that just helped it out. Rakeem, man, what's your first one?
So for my first one, this is a very popular, probably anime manga by many people in the world today. But for me, it was a very much a departure for anything I'd ever read or seen before, and that's Berserk. So I'm a very late adapter to Berserk. So of course this manga's been around since the 80s, but I ended up watching it like a few years ago, maybe during the pandemic or right before the pandemic on Netflix, watching some anime on there, and I saw Berserk for the first time. And of course, if you've heard anything about Berserk, you know it's very dark, very violent, very sexual, very depraved. It is all of those things. But when I ended up watching the animated movies, it hit me somewhere that I didn't expect, and that's where I ended up really liking Guts. So like, since if you've never seen Berserk before, it's kind of the tale of this swordsman named Guts, who basically his entire lifespan, you kind of go into his journey in life and the issues he's going through, the trauma he goes through. He's basically a person who gets the raw end of the deal from every point of his life, from birth, literally born from a corpse, all the way to he gets older. And every step of the way, he gets knocked down. He gets treated wrong. Something bad happens. He's betrayed by people who's supposed to take care of him. Betrayed by people who trust in him or love him. And the main goal of the story is he's betrayed one day by his commander in this mercenary group called the Band of the Hawk, Griffith, who betrays his entire group and sacrifices them to demons to gain basically godlike power. And he's the main antagonist of the series. The reason I like Berserk is because it flipped my expectations from the jump. Guts starts off as this really traditional super edgelord, like he's angry at everybody. He's like having sex with demon females, blowing their heads off, and like 80s action hero. That's the opening panel of Berserk in the manga. The opening panel is that. 80 action hero slaying monsters. He's followed by ghosts and spirits. He's always got his face covered and he's got scars all over his body. And the moment I was like, oh, this is cool. This is reading the manga part. The moment it got me was when he ended up having to fight this demon of this. So in this universe, the demons are basically servants of these like godlike fiends that give them power by making them sacrifice the one thing they actually love, and they get the power of that demon or whatever. And so this demon sacrificed his wife, and when he ended up killing him, the daughter was there and witnessed her father getting killed, and the pain the daughter felt, the facade of the edgelord came down from Guts. You could see tears coming down his eyes. And from there, they kind of transitioned to his backstory and everything he went through. And from that, I got to see a multi-layered character that had way more depth than just being an edgelord. He goes into more of his issues with like being assaulted as a child in a manner that no child should ever go through, and like letting himself kind of like take down his guard around people so he can actually feel human emotion more. Learning to let people in. After he lost his band, his mercenary group, he tried to go solo. Every time he tries to do a thing out, just to be by himself, it never works out. But slowly, as he lets more people in, he kind of rebuilds the companionship he had from a long time ago. And I thought that like that character and that story was really well told. And although all the other stuff in Berserk is crazy and outlandish, and I cannot recommend this to everybody, it takes everything to the extreme. Anything you can think of, it takes it 10 times farther to the extreme. But at the core of it is a story of Guts and how he is as a person, his humanity, how he builds relationships, the other characters that come around him, how he slowly builds his own group of friends and heroes and like who are all fucked up in their own ways and end up just being all fucked up together. Just a whole bunch of fucked up people working together. I love it. It's a great story. It's kind of like a Suicide Squad, kind of. But yeah, that story took me by surprise because I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. So I had to mention Berserk and Guts. I like big guys with swords, but he has a little more depth than that. So I thought I'd mention that was my first one.
If anything, he's the OG big guy with a sword.
He is the OG big guy with the sword. Although I feel like Berserk kind of takes a little bit of inspiration from Bastard, which is a little older. Yeah. Also super popular. It just never quite got an adaptation like it did get an adaptation, but it wasn't like
it does now. Yeah.
It finally has like a longer, more like faithful adaptation now. But I feel like that took a little bit. They kind of have the same kind of vibe, dark fantasy type shit. So
I can see that. Yeah.
Devin, what about you, man? first choice of an anime with an older protagonist, bro?
I think I'm gonna pick Dragon Ball GT. Vegeta with the mustache. I mean, that was quite distinguished. Like, I mean, it looked just like his father. He was an older guy, so I was like, man, Vegeta with a mustache. It's kind of cool, man. No, I'm just messing around. I was just thinking about actually Rakeem said one of the ones I had on my list. Berserk was also, I kind of like the dark stuff too. That's one of mine that I enjoy. But I'm gonna actually take a note from Will. I'm gonna actually choose something that's newer. Zom 100. The protagonist in that.
Think about that too. Yeah.
Akira. This show, like I've watched all the episodes that's come out so far. I think it's kind of given enough. I think these first 4 episodes kind of gave enough of what the show is kind of going to be about, and like some of the messaging that's going on in the show. So basically, Akira, he's like 24. He's out of college. He's going to get this job, and when he gets there, everything is all like just beautiful. People are great, such a great environment, and it's just like he's like, this is perfect job, man. I graduated college, and I got a perfect job. But he soon finds out he's like, things are not as they seem, huh? And it's crazy because, as you become an adult, you work more jobs. And this really hit home to me because I'm just like, man, this is a lot of these things is just what he's talking about is like to get to a place they say you're on this dream. Man, it's great in a work environment, man. We got some great people here, man. You got to make a lot of connections and stuff. And ain't none of that true. Like, so that's basically what this show is about, on the short version. And it's to the point where he just hates going to work. Like he's just like, I can't do this no more, man. I just can't do this. He finds out his boss is terrible, which is like usually always the case. The boss sell you on a dream. He's a horrible person himself. And he's just like, he's watching a movie. It's like a zombie apocalypse, dude getting chased. And the guy's like, he's running from the zombies. Like, man, this is like living hell. He's like, man, no, that ain't no living hell. I'd rather be there. My life was a living hell. I'm like, God, it must be rough. He's like, I want
the real adult experience.
Yeah, I want to be you. You getting chased by zombies? I'll take it any day, man. To go in and clock in that job, do a 24-hour shift, man. But yeah, he gets his wish. The zombie apocalypse happened, and most people like, man, put the wood on the doors, man. Cover the windows. He's like, I ain't got to go to work tomorrow. Cool. So it's like, I mean, I'm a horror fan. I like my zombies, but I'll keep them in my shows, in my movies. There might be some jobs I work that I hate. Even the one I work at now is not. I'm not that fond of it. But I definitely don't want those zombie apocalypse happening. I say that right now. It's even like he gets like one of the later episodes. I think episode 3. He kind of meets a friend he went to college with. He played rugby with. And they get into this dynamic. He's talking to this friend, and the friend was like, I think he does like real estate or something. So like he remembers a time where they're at a bar and they're talking, and it's like, yeah, man, I got this great job, man, selling homes left and right. I got a beautiful girlfriend. She's a model. And Akira is listening to him like, dang, I work at this crappy job. And he's just like, but they have like a dialogue later. The other guy they meet up, and he's like, he literally went to him and like apologized. He's like, man, I'm sorry, man. I kind of acted like a jerk. You were just talking about how successful you were, this, that, and the third. And the twist with that was later on, the other guy that was so-called successful, he's like, man, I was just kind of just boasting myself up. I hated that job. I hated the people that I worked with. Like, and so it's kind of like a lot of real world stuff that just like they kind of package in this zombie apocalypse. Like, somebody might be at a job that seems like great to you, they making money or whatever, but they might kind of hate it at a certain level. It might just be like a job. It's like, man, I make money or whatever, but I don't feel like fulfilled going to work. And that's what he said. He's like, I want to be a stand-up comedian. So just watching that show right now, I'm like, this has got to be one of my picks, man. Because it's like he's so done with this life of work. He's like, bring on the zombies, bro. Bring the zombies on.
I don't know if I can ever agree with that, but I mean, I can see the dislike and just like the frustration that comes with that. But like, man, I don't know about all of that, bro. That man he was out of hand. Bro. Will, what you got, man? What's your second choice, bro?
Second choice, all right. Like I said earlier, this was a little tough, and I kind of got caught between two of them. But if I had to pick one that I enjoyed with a character, an adult character, I have to go with Odd Taxi. Odd Taxi was such an interesting watch for me because I'm just like, man, I'm really up here watching animals live their everyday life. I'm up here following this walrus around, and he just driving people all through Tokyo, just living life. But the more I watch the show, and he's just interacting with people, he's just like, I'm just here to take you from point A to point B. You can talk to me about whatever. I may not care, but don't bring no mess in my car. He's just like, don't bring it in here. Take it with you when you go. But it's like everything just kind of drawed itself to him. Like anything that's just like weird rumors, urban legends. The head of a major crime kind of flew through his car at one point, and he just like, now the police are running behind me because of this, or now the Yakuza are after me. And it's just, what am I supposed to do with this? I had nothing to do with it. I just drove the car. So it's more like, I like watching this show because it's this thing where you're an adult and it seems like things just kind of follow you randomly. Like you just like, I'm living my life, but all of a sudden it's just like roadblock, bad thing happened. Not necessarily on the level of guts, but just you kind of end up getting in the middle of shit you weren't prepared for. And you don't even know half the people that's even talking to you about this mess. So Odd Taxi, great show, and I would highly recommend it. There is also a movie format of the show if you don't want to sit down through it episodically, but Odd Taxi, amazing. I think that everyone in here who hasn't sat down and watched it, please do. And if those of y'all who are watching this, if you hadn't watched Odd Taxi, what in the fuck are you doing? Go watch Odd Taxi. This show is amazing. It's a really good show.
I heard Odd Taxi was cold, like when it first came. It was one of those shows that when it came out, like it was like not quite, of course, like the shonen is always gonna be the ones that get the most attention every season,
of course,
or like a big isekai. But like right below that, you wind up with something like Odd Taxi, and Odd Taxi got tons of attention. I was like, okay. I always meant to go back and give it a shot. Oh, what's up, Terrence?
No, I was just gonna say, that it's one of those shows where, as it went on, more and more people started talking about it, and the more you heard about it, it's like, maybe I should go check this out too. Yeah.
The animation was always a little odd to me, but like I think that was, of course, part of the charm, part of the intention. Like, hey, it's supposed to like be eye catching and show you that the world is a little bit weirder than what you were expecting it to be.
You're right.
Rakeem, what's your second choice, bro?
All right, so for my second choice, I actually decided to choose one for anime I actually haven't finished, but it took the first few episodes left such an impression on me. I had to talk about it. Monster, the anime about a serial killer, and the protagonist, Dr. Tenma. And why I really liked Dr. Tenma at the beginning of the story. Man, have you ever seen a character who like tries to do the right thing, and because he does the right thing, he gets screwed? That is this character incarnate. I can't go into all the details because a lot of it's spoilery, but basically like through the actions of Dr. Tenma doing his job at a competent and high level, he's a professional surgeon. His life basically gets ruined. Like he gets demoted, he loses his wife, and through extensive circumstances, he may or may not have a serial killer after him now years later. And over the course of that story, like when you're presented to the character, you can always tell that he is bothered by how the healthcare system fails people who are underprivileged or who do not have the finances to be able to take care of themselves, and the prioritization of like the bourgeois or the rich or people who support hospitals over those people. You can tell from an early stage that he's bothered by that. And he also would benefit from like the status quo because he's in line to be the head surgeon because he's the fiance of the guy who's over the hospital's daughter. And as at a certain point in the story, he has to make a very important decision where to save a child's life, he has to prioritize a child over like a hospital benefactor. And as a result, basically he sabotages his own career for the right reason. And like just seeing him do that, you can tell this dude is a dude who has a lot of character. He's a guy who has to do the right thing, even, at the cost of his own benefit. So I thought that was kind of endearing. And as the story progresses and you deal with like the background of the killer and the situation with Tenma and his killer. If you ever seen the opening to Monster, I think I showed Devin the opening, just the animated opening. The entire opening is Dr. Tenma looking over his shoulder in every place in the world. Like he's under a bridge looking over his shoulder. He's at a restaurant looking over his shoulder. He's walking down the street. He's in the desert looking over his shoulder. Like he's terrified of what his killer could be because this dude is like a mastermind. But because of character and like doing the right thing, even though he's terrified of this killer, he has to find out information about him and figure out what's going on so he can save people's lives. I think that's a cool protagonist. And I just thought it was a cool way to have like an intelligent protagonist who kind of gets involved with trying to solve this murder mystery and is also down on his luck because of doing the right thing. Because it is kind of interesting. It is kind of cool to see honest view of sometimes doing the right things can result in you kind of getting screwed. That happens sometimes. Doing the right thing is not always going to be easy, but do it anyway. So that's why I liked Monster and I like Dr.
That's a great answer. And Monster is
Very
like a
good
top tier
answer.
anime that people say is in the same ballpark of like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, where it's like really good, but nowhere near enough people talk about it.
It's
feel like-
really good.
It feels like it's kind of turned into one of those animes nowadays where a lot of people talk about it, but have they actually seen it is the question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
what
it is, really.
That's what Galactic Heroes used to be online back in the day, like before social media was as big and it was like a lot of forums and stuff. Like you'd constantly hear about Galactic Hero like before the reboot, and it'd just be talked about in these hushed tones, and it was just like, oh, this anime is great. It's one of the best. It's the greatest anime ever created. This, that, the third. It's like, hey man, who fucking watched this show? Now,
I
to its credit,
know Monster was gone off of streaming for quite some time in North America, but now it's back on Netflix. So in case you're wondering where to watch it, that's where you can watch it. Netflix.
I saw it the other day scrolling through Netflix because I didn't watch it on Netflix when I watched it.
Yeah.
Lord, I was blessed by the blessing of someone who happened to upload it on a specific website that you and me may know about, and it just so happened to have the entire show, and I just happened to watch it. That's how I came across
quite
it.
a way of putting that.
it was.
Look, I'm gonna have to go watch it now. Because I've been knowing about it for years, but never got a chance to catch it when it broadcasted, and never got a chance to get the DVD sets when they were out. So I'm just like, you know what? I gotta catch it one way or another. So I'm definitely gonna watch it.
Yeah, we'll get on that. I gotta finish it because I haven't finished it. I need to get back on watching it. Audience, if you're out there and you want to watch an anime that's a different tone but more grounded in the real world, kind of a murder mystery, that is the murder mystery anime. Watch Monster, please.
Great recommendation. I feel like we batting 1,000 right now. Devin, what's up? What's your second choice, bro?
Okay, so my second choice, I thought about it. It's kind of similar to Zone 100. It kind of goes with the adulting things again, and I'm picking Saitama. Not much for his like punching people in the face, once and that's it. But his life before that, and even like some of his tendencies afterwards, he becomes One Punch Man. Like before he, went on his journey to, do the 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and all the running and stuff, and lose his hair. This is just he's a regular dude, just going to work. And one of the scenes that was the most hilarious to me, and it was like, as you get older, you go to the store shopping. You don't do that as much as a kid, but when you get older, there's kind of things you have to do. Just like going to grab some toilet paper, food, whatever. I think he's fighting. It was either the Mosquito Queen, that lady, or I think it was he went to like one of those laboratories. He was fighting like this kind of like a cell like boss. He was like leveling up and getting stronger as they fought him. And if I'm not mistaken, he's like, man, look, I got to hurry him get his boss, man. They got like 2 for 1 on the crab over there, man.
I know what you're talking about.
And
I definitely remember this scene.
This is that's one of the most adult. Like you just, man, they got a sale over there on catfish, man. I gotta go get some of that. Like, bro, you fighting this dude about to? He's like, I mean, for you it ain't no problem because you're gonna punch him once, but still the fact that he's thinking about just little menial tasks like that throughout the day, the errands I gotta run, and you out here running the phase with all these. Again, like I said, for him, no problem, but I mean. Genos fight him, he get beaten to the ground or just beaten out of existence. But I just think that dynamic is hilarious. Even I feel like it was kind of some similar things there with him not really liking like his life was just kind of getting mundane. I guess I gotta shake it up or something, man. or even him fighting the crab man at the beginning when the kid was out there. He's picking on the kid. Hey man, get away from this kid, man. He just like, I guess felt like some purpose, like, you know, I'm a grown up, but I guess I'll step in and save this kid. And after that, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna do this crazy workout regimen. I'm gonna become the strongest man on earth. But I still gotta go get them groceries, man. It's 2 for 1, man. Cause I just think that's crazy. I like a deal myself. I like if it's like a bargain or reduced price, I'm for it. And I feel like as I gotten older, that set in more because you're trying to save money when you get older. And it's just funny that they brought the dynamic that you like the strongest person in this anime. You're the protagonist, but he's like, man, they got a sale down at Kroger's. Just wrap this fight up because I got to get on it. So I just think that's funny that they brought that in there, man.
Solid choice. One Punch Man is, of course, a great anime. I think everybody has seen it once, you know, both seasons. I can't wait actually for this show to come back.
Man,
please.
They did. The animation was kind of. I think it's coming back next year, Keem. The animation was kind of like weak in season 2, but they made up for it with far better world building. So
man, just like Garo, that arc,
Garo, and like really just the hero association and like how that worked out and shit. Like all of that shit was just much better all around with that one. So I like season 2 in some ways better than season 1. It definitely doesn't have the same pop to the fight scenes, but it has everything else. So I'm looking for hopefully season 3 can bring back the animation level and then like also have everything else that it needs. Because I really liked One Punch Man, and I can't wait to see what they have planned next. I know the manga has been going for a while now, so it's a little bit ahead. Maybe they can adapt some more, finish out the Garo arc before they start leaning into some of the new stories.
Terrence, you remember us watching King play Final Fantasy early?
Yeah,
that's where that's from. I've seen some of the manga. That's where they taking One Punch Man. That fight we saw, it's gonna get to something like that.
That's what I heard. I have some people who've read the manga or talked about the manga, and every time I hear this, is like, all right, there's some nonsense going on at the top levels. Yeah. And I don't even know, because like they basically made all the S-class heroes worthless by the end of, well, not all of them, but like most of all the A-class heroes were worthless by the time you get to the end of season 2.
A-class definitely.
Season 2, yeah.
And most of the S-class heroes, you kind of like, y'all all right, but y'all not really like that. Like y'all think y'all like that, but you're not really like that. And it's really just Saitama and a S-class hero that nobody's seen in ages, and that's pretty much it. And I don't know where they go from there. Like, I guess because he's always going to be stronger than everybody else, because that's the joke. I guess you can keep introducing new villains, but man, they're going to need some extra supporting characters to level up or step, because like y'all not even fit to fight. Never mind the main character. Y'all getting to the point where y'all not fit to fight the lackeys, and y'all got to do better than that. Terrence, what's your second one, bro?
So for this one, I wanted to get a female protagonist, and I struggled with this just because when I was looking at all the anime that have like older women as like the lead, it's like ones that I haven't like yet watched. They've been on my list perpetually, and I just never got to them. Ones like Nana, Violent Evergarden. I haven't watched that in full. It's like, dang it, this will be. I wish I had watched these so I'd be ready for this episode. But there is one that I'm gonna go with that came out this year. I mean, she's not like older, but she's in college. So you know what? For me, in terms of anime, if you're in college, that's considered old. So you know what?
That is old.
Because not too many anime take place at college or have college age characters. But for me, it's an anime that I really enjoyed, and that's My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999, which I know that's a long title, but we'll just call it Yamada-kun.
I started watching that. I need to get back to it.
It's really good. Like Madhouse, they definitely returned in regards to doing romantic comedies. They returned big time with this one. And the character that I'm talking about is the main character. Her name is Akane. And what's cool about her is that she feels very real. She feels grounded. Like a lot of times when it comes to like romance anime, they could kind of be a bit over the top in terms of how the situations are played out and like just the misunderstanding of things. And there's still some of that's in this anime, but it isn't taken too far to the extreme. But what's cool about Akane is that she feels very grounded. She's genuinely a nice person. The first episode starts out with her going through a breakup. She meets with her boyfriend at like a restaurant, and her boyfriend breaks up with her because he's like met someone else through this game that they've been playing together, and it's a really it's a really unfortunate situation. Like her boyfriend got her into this MMO, and she's been playing it, and after they break up, she goes back on it, just because she's been involved with it all this time, that she just figures, well, you know what, I'm going to continue to play without him. I'm going to do my own thing, start my own guild, etc. And long story short, what's that?
I just said understandable.
Yeah. Long story short, she ends up meeting a bunch of other characters. She meets this character named Yamada, and she meets him in real life, and she grows closer with him, and she gets introduced to his guild. And what's really cool about this anime is it kind of shows how these online games work in terms of how you can meet different people from all over the world, of different ages, and you can connect over the common ground of liking this game. Because in this guild that she's in, they have Yamada, the character that she eventually gets into a relationship with. They have an older guy who is like really kind. He's a really cool guy. Like find out later on in the series that he like knows everyone who's like important. So he's actually like this really important character that kind of play off as like this very meek guy. And also you have a couple of other characters that she meets. Most of them are older, like they're like 19, 20s. The older guy, he's like in his 40s or so, but they all have like different age ranges. One of them, she's like 15 or so in high school. But yeah, it's just a really cool anime that I thoroughly enjoyed, that I feel like it didn't fall on too many of your standard like romance or even shoujo tropes. And it was just really cool to watch how she overcomes the situation of going through this breakup to meeting this guild and becoming closer with them, establishing closer bonds, and establishing a closer bond with Yamada, whom she eventually gets with later on in the series. I mean, spoiler alert, but I mean, duh, they're going to get together. That's the whole point of the series. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And yeah, it's an anime that I would recommend that if you're looking for a good romantic comedy to watch, something along the lines of, it's not quite like Watakoi in terms of it, having like older characters who are more like in the corporate world. This is more like characters that are in college, but it's still a very cute anime and one that's worth watching. I think that Akane is actually a really cool character. So yeah, it's one that I would recommend.
That was one that I meant to check out this past, when did it come out? Like last season or season before?
It was in spring, I believe. Or it might have been summer. Either spring or summer.
It's not, well, summer's right now, so it's
I guess it is. Yeah, so spring.
Yeah, I definitely, that was one of the ones I was like, I need to check that out. And I just never got around to it, which is the story of me and a lot of anime, quite francely. As adults, that's kind of the point. There's only so much time in the day. So, there are some that you don't get a chance to see. I guess I got the last one. And I definitely picked, I knew when I picked this one, I was like, man, ain't nobody gonna pick this because nobody else has seen it. I've talked about this one before. Mobile Police Pat Labor.
Oh, yeah.
And what I like about Pat Labor is that it's nothing like what you'd expect it to be. It's almost like an anti-mecha series. Like the robots, they aren't designed for military use first and foremost. They're like designed for construction. They tell you this at the opening of every episode. Like the military, like at first, like they started making these giant robots called labors to help with construction. And then eventually people started committing crimes with the giant robots. And it led to the police needing to get their own robots, their own labors to fight labor crimes. But like any cop show that's worth literally anything, what makes Pat Labor good isn't the action, it's the characters behind them. It shows how hard the job is and how often the job isn't shutting down like drug dealers and murderers, but it's like people dealing with like, mental breakdowns in public, or how hard it is to be a public servant in a world that doesn't appreciate public service. The entire cast is just really well done, really well written. They always manage to develop these characters without the extravagant designs. Like you're not going to find any character with like crazy colored hair. It's a very 90s series, but like even back in the 90s, sometimes you see characters with, brightly colored hair. Not this. They have colored hair. Their hair is colored the same way as any like Japanese person or any like, real life person would be. The lead protagonist, she's such a fascinating character, such a lovable character. Noah Izumi. She's just like a big mech head, but she's not hyped to fight in the mech. She just wants to to like test it, to polish it, just to pilot it around, and she uses it mostly to protect the peace. Her partner Asuma, he's like the son of a major business corporation, like he basically like the equivalent of being the son of like Capsule Corp in this world. And but even though he's that rich, he just wants to make his own way, so he became a cop. You have like the leader, and he's like this super laid back guy, and you always see him reading the paper or clipping his toenails or trying to find some way to goof off, but he's always like 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else. He always knows what's going on around him. Nobody can pull a fast one on him. You have the guy that just loves his wife, and his wife loves him. And, but there's also a bit of honesty to it. Like, it feels like the kind of job, like an actual workplace that you go into. But it's not that they're, like, getting away from what, like, oh, okay, some cops do suck. So they have the idiot cop that just wants to use excessive force to solve every problem because he is a cop. Except in this, because it is a comedy, he's comic relief, and everybody's constantly reeling him in. And, like, he's always like, oh, I want to use my gun. But, of course, he's got a giant robot. So he's like, I'm going to use my giant robot gun. And they're like, hey, man, I'm going to be honest with you. We ain't load that with bullets because we ain't got no bullets for that right now. Like, we can't afford bullets. So, like, you just going to have to figure it out. You got your baton and you got your talking skills, but use your people skills, bro, because that's it. Pat Labor, to me, is the ultimate example of a well-done episodic show. It's 47 episodes, but most of the episodes just switch week to week to week. Like, if you're not going to get the same thing, it's not going to be like a continuing plot. One week they dealt with like a Loch Ness monster type character, and they have to figure out, like, is this monster real? And what do we do if it is? Like, there's some week you have that. Another week they might be dealing with the idiot cop going on an arranged date because he's like bad with women, and you get to see him be awkward and try to learn how to like navigate a situation where it's like, this is supposed to be you getting arranged to date and hopefully get married, and he has to try to figure out how to act around a woman. And then sometimes, very occasionally in the background, you'll get like a main plot of the military's plans to start incorporating labors into their stuff and like using the data from other like labors that have been piloted and figure out how to, but like that's not the common thing. Like the common thing is just focusing on these characters and seeing what these characters are going through in their day-to-day life. And it's a slow watch. Like it's not a show that I would recommend binging, but like every episode was just so well put together. And like, I would always find myself laughing or like getting into these characters' lives and just finding myself like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll fuck with this. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like there are very few mecha anime that I love as much as Pat Labor. And just the fact that it has just a whole cast of adult characters, it just helps it. So, but man, I think we did good, man. Like, I don't think we had any repeats, right?
Not
I
at
don't
all.
think so.
Holy crap, that's nice, man. We gave y'all 10
Look at
episodes.
us watching anime.
Yeah, see, we do watch anime. But I mean, like, look, I mean, you got 10 anime. Check out if you hadn't checked them out. Like, if you're looking for something with an older protagonist, I mean, we got you. But I think that's gonna wrap up this week's episode. If you like that, I need a few things from you. I need you to do us a favor and hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter, follow us on TikTok. Don't just check us out. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody. Oh, you can tell everybody. And do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.